In a bustling cafe in downtown Seattle, Lily stood behind the counter, her heart beating faster than usual as she watched the clock. It was a chilly Wednesday morning, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. She knew he'd be there soon. Jake had been a regular at the cafe for years. His dark hair, light beard, and kind eyes always brought a sense of comfort to Lily. While she poured coffee for the early morning crowd, she often stole glances out the window, waiting for him. Today felt different. Today was the day she dreaded. As the clock ticked closer to 9:00 a.m., the cafe door swung open. Jake stepped inside, shaking off the cold while glancing around. Upon making eye contact with Lily, he smiled and a wave of warmth washed over her. But then she remembered why she felt such anxiety. "Hey," Jake ambled towards the counter. Lily asked, forcing a smile, though the nerves twisted in her stomach. He leaned against the counter casually, oblivious to the storm brewing inside her. Lily quickly prepared his drink, her hands almost trembling as she did. "Jake, can you step outside for a minute? I need to talk to you about something." His brow furrowed slightly. "Sure, no problem." With that, Jake turned and walked out into the cool morning air. Lily took a deep breath, wiping her brow with the back of her hand. She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Today was the day she would tell him. Her manager, Tom, had warned her. "This is a tough one, Lily." Tom walked over, noticing her anxious expression. "Not really," she admitted, her voice shaking just a bit. As she set the iced coffee down on the counter, Tom suddenly straightened up. His shoulders squared and the calm authority radiated from him. Lily nodded, feeling a bit more at ease under his gaze. Good, because this guy, he's not just a customer. Lily looked away, her thoughts swirling. She had feelings for Jake, real ones, but that wasn't the only secret she carried. Tom knew it, and that only made this moment even more complicated. "Lily," Tom said, stepping closer, "it's about to get serious, you know. We've always been about loyalty here." "Jake," she asked, her heart racing, "just trust me. You have to handle this delicately. It's not just what you think." Before she could respond, Tom walked to the door and opened it, stepping outside. He was tall, imposing even, with a strong presence. Lily's heart sank when she saw what was happening on the other side of the glass. Tom approached Jake, who was leaning casually against the cafe's wall, sipping his iced coffee. As Lily peered through the window, she caught the moment when Tom raised his hand in a sharp salute. It was startling. She felt a chill run down her spine. Jake's expression shifted from casual curiosity to a serious acknowledgement. He returned the salute. The cafe, once a warm and inviting space, felt cold and dark at that moment. What was happening here? Lily felt her breath catch in her throat. The two stood there, her manager and the man she had feelings for, locked in a moment that seemed to stretch on forever. It felt like a scene from a movie, but this was her life. Tom's serious demeanor faded slightly as he said something to Jake, who nodded back. The look on Jake's face was intense, as if he were readying himself for something significant. Had she truly misjudged who he was? The door swung open again, and Tom strode back in, leaving Jake standing outside. There was a tension in the air that filled the cafe. "You need to talk to him, Lily," Tom insisted, his voice firm. She exclaimed, almost too shocked to form sentences. What was he doing? "Why did you? He's not just a regular customer, Lily. He's serving our country." Her world tilted. The gravity of every moment she'd shared with Jake crashed over her like a wave. All those playful smiles and casual conversations. Was it all a facade? "I had no idea," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "Look, he's in a unit that's preparing to deploy soon. You need to decide if you want to say something." With that, Tom left her standing in a whirlwind of emotions. She felt torn between excitement, fear, and confusion. The clock ticked on, every second felt like an eternity passing right before her eyes. Taking a deep breath, she forced herself to move towards the door. She stepped outside, heart racing. The chilly air hit her face, a jolt of reality. Jake was still standing against the wall, looking thoughtful. "Hey," she called out, trying to keep her voice steady. He turned, a smile spreading across his face, but it faltered when he saw the expression on hers. No, I'm not," she replied, feeling the truth drip from her lips. Jake straightened up, his eyes filled with concern. I never knew about who you really are," she stammered, feeling exposed. "Tom just told me. I had no clue you were." Jake seemed taken aback, the easygoing charm fading from his face. Her voice wavered. "All of those times we laughed and I shared my dreams with you." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "It's not easy for me either. It's hard to let people in. I didn't want to complicate things. The truth is, it's difficult, you know." She felt a rush of emotions. They were both standing on this precipice, exposed, raw and real. "But you could have trusted me, Jake. I have feelings for you." He stepped closer, searching her eyes for honesty. "Lily, it's not that simple. You have to understand. I'm going into something that could change everything." Her voice dropped, tears threatening to spill. "By being here, by letting me in." A flicker of emotion sparked in his eyes. He asked gently. Lily felt her heart race, the thought chilling her to the bone. "But what if you do?" They stood facing each other, a moment thick with unspoken words and raw decisions. Lyrics of a song drifted through the cafe's open door, something about love lost and chances taken. The weight of truth hung there like fog around them, enveloping them. "I want to wait for you, Jake," she said finally, "whatever it takes." He looked taken aback again, searching her eyes as if she were a mystery he wanted to decode. Lily, the words hovered in the air between them, unspoken but palpable. And in that moment, everything felt possible and yet impractical all at once. I will wait for you, she whispered, feeling the resolve settle within her as if her heart had made a promise. He stepped forward, wrapping her in his arms. As they held each other, the world around them faded, the cafe bustling behind them, time moving forward. In that embrace, raw energy passed between them, fear, hope, warmth, uncertainty, all tangled together. And as they finally pulled apart, Jake offered a small smile that reached his eyes. She gave a soft laugh, shaking her head. With one last lingering look, Jake turned and walked away. The knowledge of his departure settled like a stone in her heart, yet all she could do was feel thankful for the connection they had forged in that cold Seattle morning. She returned inside, feeling different, lighter. The cafe buzzed as customers moved about, but she felt anchored in her resolve. She could wait. No matter how long it took, she could wait. The cafe was bustling, filled with the aroma of freshly baked pastries and strong coffee. Amid the chatter and laughter, Lily stood at the counter, her heart racing. She tapped her fingers nervously against the stainless steel surface, glancing at the door every few seconds. But it was when she saw him walk in that her breath caught in her throat. Jake strolled in, his usual easy smile lighting up the room. He had a way of brightening even the dullest of mornings, but today felt different. Today, the weight of unsaid words lingered in the air, heavy and palpable. Jake called out, his voice breaking through her swirling thoughts. She responded, her voice steadier than she felt. She poured him an iced coffee, her mind racing with the conversation she had been dreading. He flashed that charming grin, but this time it didn't feel as comforting. It felt loaded. As she handed him his drink, she hesitated, her heart pounding. Can we talk? Jake's smile faded slightly, replaced by an expression of curiosity mixed with concern. She gestured toward the door, her words coming out in a rush. Lily watched as he stepped outside, the door closing behind him with a soft chime. In that moment, a sense of dread washed over her. She turned around to see her manager, Tom, leaning against the back wall. His expression was serious. Tom asked, his voice low as if he knew how heavy the moment was. Lily nodded, though her insides waged a fierce battle. I have to tell him. Tom sighed, an understanding gaze passing between them. Just remember, this is big stuff, Lily. He's not just some guy. Lily's stomach twisted. It was true. Their friendship had always danced along the edges of something deeper. She had never considered that Jake might be hiding something significant from her. Then from behind, she saw Tom's expression shift. Her pulse quickened as she turned. What she witnessed froze her. Right outside, Jake stood casually, sipping his iced coffee, but Tom had walked up to him. The tall manager looked all business, sharp and authoritative in his demeanor. Lily's heart raced as she stepped closer to the window. She could hear bits of their conversation, but all she could focus on was the sight of Tom raising his hand in a sharp salute. It felt surreal, like a scene from a movie. The air between them crackled with tension. Jake returned the salute, his casual demeanor replaced by a look of respect and acknowledgement. Tom's voice pulled her back to reality. The way they interacted changed her perspective. She whispered, reflecting on all the times she'd shared with Jake, never knowing the truth. It's better you find out here, Tom replied. Jake isn't just any guy. Wait, what? In that instant, everything shifted. How could she not have known? All the laughter and late-night conversations suddenly felt veiled, like an unexamined truth wreathing around them. Tom returned inside, his demeanor composed but serious. You've got to talk to him. She felt a whirlwind of emotion. It's hard. Lots of service members struggle with sharing that part of their lives. The clock on the wall ticked louder. Every second felt heavier as she watched Jake standing outside, looking pensive, seemingly staring into the distance. Lily, Tom urged, his voice firm. Taking a deep breath, she opened the cafe door. Goosebumps rose on her skin as the cold air hit her. She stepped outside, the world feeling both vibrant and surreal. She called, he turned, and the warmth of his smile flickered back. But it looked different now, tinted with a shade of apprehension. Can we just? Her heart raced as she searched for the right words. I didn't know about you being in the military. Jake winced. I didn't know how. But you should have told me, Lily insisted, frustration bubbling up. It's complicated, he replied, shifting his weight uncomfortably. It's hard to mix this part of my life with. He gestured between the two of them. She pressed, fighting back tears. You think I wouldn't understand? Jake took a step closer, his expression serious. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud, darkening their moment. Then we deal with it together, Lily said, her voice steadying. He looked pained, and for a fleeting moment she saw the conflict in his eyes. Lily, I'm going to be in dangerous places, she countered. What if you come back ready to live? I want to give it a shot, he admitted, his voice softening. Then let's make a promise together, she said, the firmness of her own words surprising her. A flicker of hope flashed in his eyes. She took a deep breath, grounding herself. I care about you, Jake, don't shut me out. He stepped closer, warmth radiating from him. I've wanted to say this for so long. At that moment, the brief pause felt like a lifetime. Everything around them faded, the sounds of the cafe and bustling street blurring into a gentle background hum. The two of them stood on a precipice, emotions swirling in a tempest. You should tell me how you feel, she whispered. Lily eyed Jake started, but before he could finish, the door swung open again. Tom emerged, a stern look on his face. "Time's up, Jake." He stepped between them, and just like that, it felt as though a wall had risen. Lily cried out, the urgency of the moment piercing through her haze. "You can't just—" Jake stepped forward, urgency in his voice. "Tom, please." Tom shook his head, his posture firm. "We don't have time, you need to report in." With a defeated sigh, Jake raked a hand through his hair, the sheen of anxiety glistening beneath the cafe's warm light. All hope flickered dimly. Lily trailed off, feeling her heart drop. Jake looked back at her, his expression shifting from hope to despair. "Lily, I'll come back. I promise, just know that I care about you, okay? Please," she pleaded, tears brimming at the corners of her eyes. He gulped, the weight of their moment hanging between them. "I care for you immensely. Then don't leave me on the edge," she urged, stepping closer. But Tom was shaking his head, still standing at the threshold between them. "Jake, we really need to go." Jake looked stricken, his voice cracking. "I wish I could say more." With one final glance, he nodded at Tom and turned away. The moment stretched painfully as he walked toward the street, his silhouette becoming distant. She called out, desperation creeping into her voice. "Please don't forget," but he turned just enough for her to catch a glimpse of the turmoil in his gaze. "I won't," he said, his voice barely a whisper as he disappeared around the corner, swallowed by the world outside. Lily stood frozen on the sidewalk, the ache in her chest difficult to bear. She felt the weight of unspoken promises hanging in the air like a heavy mist. Tom stepped back into the cafe, watching her with a mixture of sympathy and regret. "He'll come back, you know," Tom said, trying to be reassuring. She replied, the words escaping in a faint whisper. "Or will he get lost out there?" Tom sighed, his gaze steady. "Life is about risks. You took one by telling him how you felt." Time felt suspended. The cafe buzzed behind her, the world kept moving, yet Lily remained trapped in that last moment, an echo of unspoken words lingering in her heart. As the reality of the weighty silence settled in, she wiped at her eyes and turned back inside. The warmth of the cafe surrounded her, but the cool breeze of uncertainty still lingered, etching a new layer of resolve within her. No matter how long it took, she would be waiting, for the promise of a future, for the words that had yet to be spoken, and for a connection that time and distance could not sever. As she looked around the cafe, her heart heavy but determined, Lily knew one thing she would not forget. She said, her voice firm but trembling slightly. It was a simple request, but the weight behind it felt like a boulder pressing down on her chest. As Jake stepped out of the cafe, Lily's heart raced, not just from nerves, but from a myriad of emotions swirling inside her. She turned her back to the door for a moment, her fingers gripping the counter. The rhythmic sounds of the espresso machine mixed with the chatter of customers faded into a blur. She could feel the tension building, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. A voice broke her focus. It was Tom, her manager, standing close, his brow furrowed with concern. "I have to tell him, Tom. I can't keep this from him any longer," she replied, swallowing hard. Her thoughts were a chaotic mix of fear and determination. Tom studied her for a moment, the gravity of her words hanging in the air. "Just remember, this isn't just a simple conversation. He's not the average guy you know from the cafe." "I know," she said, her voice firmer now. She had rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind, but the reality of it was overwhelming. With a deep breath, she turned to glance through the cafe's large front window. Jake stood outside, leaning casually against the wall, his eyes scanning the street. He looked carefree, as if he hadn't just walked into the storm that was their current reality. He had no idea what she was about to say. Just as she prepared herself to step outside, Tom's expression shifted, his eyes narrowing as he stared at Jake. "Wait," he said suddenly, stepping away from her. Curiosity sparked within her. What was he doing? Tom walked toward the door and she felt her heart skip a beat. She watched through the glass as Tom approached Jake, his posture straightening into something more formal. It was as if Jake had activated some hidden switch within him. Jake asked, tilting his head slightly. Without any preamble, Tom raised his hand in a sharp salute. The motion sent shockwaves through Lily. Her stomach dropped and her breath caught in her throat. Why was he saluting him? What was going on? Jake responded, almost instinctively, returning the salute with a sober expression. In that moment, the world around her began to fade. All she could see was the connection between them, a hidden reality she hadn't been privy to. This wasn't just a casual interaction anymore, it was something much deeper. Her mind raced as she turned to face the cafe's busy interior, her heart pounding. What had she missed? The laughter they shared, the quiet smiles, had all felt so comforting. But she had no idea who he really was beneath that easygoing personality. Tom walked back into the cafe, his face set in a serious expression as he approached her. "Lily, I think you need to know, Jake isn't just a regular customer." Her breath escaped her in a sudden rush, and she felt like the ground had shifted beneath her. Everything she thought she knew about Jake had just collapsed. "In the military, it's complicated," Tom said, sounding empathetic, yet resolute. She felt the tension tightening inside her, a mix of admiration and worry. The words were like needles, every syllable filled with a sharp pain she couldn't ignore. Yes, he is. That's why this conversation matters now more than ever, Tom replied, urgency creeping into his voice. Without thinking, Lily stepped outside. The cool air hit her like a splash of water, sharp and awakening. Jake was still standing against the wall, his eyes momentarily glazed, lost in thought. She called, her voice breaking just a little. He turned, that familiar smile returning as his eyes caught hers. She said, the emotion spilling out, "Nothing is okay, you didn't tell me who you are." His expression shifted from surprise to seriousness, realization dawning upon him. "Lily, I know you don't get to explain right now." Her heart raced with frustration. All those moments, the laughter, the late-night talks, I was falling for you, Jake. And you let me believe we had something special while hiding this. I didn't know how to tell you, he replied slowly, his voice dropping as if searching for the right words. It's not easy, I didn't want to complicate things, I didn't want you to worry about me, it's too late for that, she interrupted, feeling the heat of anger and concern bubbling up. You're going off to who knows where and I don't even get a say in it. Jake stepped closer, his expression pained. Please don't be angry. This life, it's hard to talk about, it makes everything feel, she echoed, her voice rising. You've been living a truth I didn't even know existed. I care about you, Jake, I want you to talk to me about everything. He looked at her, a mix of guilt and regret playing across his features. I know I messed up. I do care about you, but this world, it's complicated. She challenged, her eyes searching his. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Lily's heart sank. I can't believe this. I'll come back, I promise, he said, desperation creeping into his voice. She asked, frustration pouring out of her. That's not enough, Jake. What if things change? At that, pain flickered across his face. I can't promise you what will happen, but I do want to try for us. She felt her stomach twist at the thought of losing him. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. They'd shared so many moments, laughter, quiet glances that spoke volumes, all while he held back the heaviest part of his life. Lily continued, her voice steady despite the storm raging within her. Can you promise to be honest with me from now on? Whatever comes next, I'll try, he said, and sincerity laced his words. She stepped closer, searching his face for that familiar spark, that easy smile. But his eyes were clouded with uncertainty, and she felt her heart ache. Just promise me you'll keep me in the loop, she said softly. I'll do my best, I swear, he promised. Just then the door swung open behind her. Tom emerged, a look of concern on his face. Time seemed to stretch painfully as the words sank in. She could see Jake's relaxed demeanor shift into something more serious, miles instead of minutes spreading between them. She asked Tom, her voice rising in desperation. There's no time, he replied, his tone resolute. Lily felt the walls closing in, the air thick with unsaid words. Jake, please don't leave like this, she begged, her hands trembling. He stepped back, the distance between them suddenly feeling insurmountable. Lily, I won't forget you. Please remember that, he said, his voice steady but strained. Tell me you'll come back, Jake, she urged, tears stinging her eyes. I'll do everything I can, he replied, his expression one of both longing and resolve. As Tom placed a hand on Jake's shoulder, a pang of finality shot through her. Please, she whispered. Jake hesitated, their eyes locking in a silent battle of emotions, but Tom's grip on him was firm and the weight of duty loomed heavy. I promise, he said finally, conviction buried in his words. With that, he turned and walked away. As the door swung shut, Lily felt the world shift beneath her. The bustling cafe faded into silence, the vibrant energy replaced by a haunting emptiness. She stood there frozen, feeling as if every piece of her had just been stolen away with him. Tom approached, a look of understanding passing over his face. But it wasn't enough, she said, her voice cracking. Tom nodded slowly. But you shared something real, that matters. As she stared off into the distance, the loss weighed heavy in her chest, but a flicker of hope remained. It might be difficult, but if he made it back, there would be a chance to rebuild, to reconnect, to become what they had only begun to explore. She wiped her tears and straightened her back. Life was unpredictable, yes, but it was also fiercely beautiful. She knew she would wait. Lily would wait for him to come back, not just for herself, but for them both. No matter how long it took, no matter how far he had to go. And even if the world felt empty now, she would hold on to hope, ready to embrace whatever came next. After all, love had a way of finding its way back home. Wait outside for a moment, she said, her voice steady, even though her heart raced in her chest. The cafe was alive with the morning rush, but for Lily, the world had narrowed down to just this moment. She could feel the weight of unspoken words pressing down on her, and she needed to set things right. Jake nodded, a curious smile playing on his lips as he stepped outside. He was used to the casual banter between them, but there was something in Lily's demeanor today that felt different. Maybe it was the way she was biting her lip or how her eyes flickered with uncertainty. Lily turned back to the barista station, the air thick with the mingling scents of coffee and baked goods. The cafe door swung shut behind Jake with a soft thud, but that sound seemed to echo in her mind. Could she really do this? The uncertainty gnawed at her, but she knew she had to. Tom, her manager, asked, leaning against the counter with an understanding look. His presence was comforting, but the seriousness in his eyes reminded her of the stakes at hand. I have to tell him the truth, Lily replied, her voice firming. It's time. Tom studied her for a moment, his brow furrowed. Just be careful, this isn't just about you two. He's more than a customer, Lily. His words sunk deep, but she was determined. The moments they'd shared had felt so real. She could no longer leave them hanging in the air like unaddressed secrets. With a quick, shaky breath, she glanced out the window. Jake was standing there, arms crossed, looking up at the clear blue sky. He seemed relaxed, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing inside her. As if sensing her gaze, he turned and caught her eye, flashing that boyish grin that always made her heart flutter. But today, she felt a tightness in her chest as a new reality clung to her. Just then, Tom's expression shifted. "Wait, stay here," he said, a new urgency in his tone. Lily asked, confused. Without another word, Tom moved toward the door and a wave of anxiety shot through her. Was he really going to talk to Jake without her? Through the glass, Lily watched as Tom stepped outside. Jake's smile faded, replaced by a serious look as Tom approached him. The camaraderie from moments earlier disappeared in an instant. Tom stood a full head taller, exuding authority. And then, in a startling burst of formality, he raised his hand in a salute. Lily felt her heart drop as confusion washed over her. Why was Tom saluting him? Her stomach twisted in knots as she pushed her face closer to the window to get a better look. Jake's casual demeanor shifted. He saluted back, a look of respect coloring his features. The sight felt surreal. The man she thought she knew was now standing before a figure of authority, and it rattled the foundations of her understanding. She whispered to herself, emotions swirling within her like a tempest. Her heart raced, combining curiosity with a growing fear. Tom turned slightly, glancing back towards the café, and it felt as if he could sense her unease even from a distance. The moment hung heavy between them, the three of them now intertwined in a web of unspoken truths. Tom walked back inside, his expression serious as he approached her. She asked, the words barely managing to escape her lips, "Jake isn't just a customer." The ground felt like it had shifted beneath her, the revelation hitting her like a punch to the gut. She echoed, stunned. Tom glanced at Jake through the window, who was standing outside, a mix of confusion and concern crossing his face. A lot of service members find it hard to share that part of their lives, especially with someone they care about. She whispered, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. All the moments we shared, all the laughter, we were building something, and now I find out It's best to talk to him now, Tom urged, a note of urgency creeping into his voice. With a heavy heart, Lily nodded, the gravity of the situation tearing at her. Time felt suspended as she made her way to the door. She paused, taking one last glance at Jake standing outside, oblivious to the weight of the conversation she was about to have. Stepping out into the crisp air, she called out to him, her voice wavering. He turned, that ever-familiar smile returning, but this time it felt shaky, uncertain. The words poured out like a dam breaking. "You didn't tell me the truth, Jake." Jake's expression shifted from confusion to realization, his brows knitting together. "Lily, I know." She interrupted, anger mixing with fear. "You need to understand that all the moments we spent together felt real. I thought we were building something, but you kept a massive part of yourself hidden away. I thought keeping my life separate would protect you," Jake said, stepping closer. His voice was low, earnest. She echoed, her voice rising. "You think I would have run away if I'd known the truth? I care about you, Jake." Jake opened his mouth, hesitating as if he were searching for the right words. "I didn't want you to worry," she said, her voice filled with frustration. "You think I'm not capable of dealing with whatever comes next. You've been shutting me out." He stepped back, the distance between them growing as reality started to wash over him. "I care about you too, but it's not just a romantic relationship." She countered, tears brimming in her eyes. "What are we if you keep shutting me out? Will you still care when you're far away?" His tone softened, but he seemed torn. "You don't know how hard this is." Feeling the weight of his vacant tone, she pressed on, her voice steadying. "I want to ride out those uncertainties with you." Jake sighed, rubbing the back of his neck as he struggled to articulate his feelings. "You're not just someone in my life. You're everything. You don't get to choose for me, Jake," she said sharply, her heart racing. "I choose to be here. Let me be a part of your life, your challenges, please." The silence between them felt suffocating. "I promise," he finally said, his voice heavy with sincerity. A flicker of vulnerability crossed his face. It was a moment where fear, hope, and trust converged. "But you have to know, it's still possible I won't come back the same." She stepped closer, reaching for his hand. "Then we'll take it one day at a time. I don't care what you return as." At that moment, a small smile broke across his face, a moment of relief surfacing amidst the turmoil. But before she could relish the breakthrough, the cafe door swung open. Tom's expression was grave, cutting through their fragile moment. "Jake, we have to go." The urgency in his tone drowned out her hopes like a wave crashing over a dock. Jake took a breath, and for a moment the world fell silent. Lily pleaded, her heart racing wildly. "No time," Tom urged, locking his gaze onto Jake. "You know we can't miss this." Every second stretched painfully while she felt the reality crash down around her. He stepped back, uncertainty flooding his eyes. "Lily, I won't forget you. I'll be thinking of you every day." "Promise you'll be back," she cried out, desperation flooding her voice. "I'll try, I promise. I can't make guarantees, but I'll do my best," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He turned and started to walk away, leaving her feeling hollow and raw. The door swung shut behind him, sealing a moment that felt like a lifetime. Inside, the cafe buzzed with noise and chatter, but Lily felt nothing but an echo of emptiness. Tom watched her carefully, the understanding in his eyes heavy. "You did what you could," he said softly. "But it wasn't enough," she whispered, tears brimming on her lashes. "What will happen to him out there?" Tom stepped closer, offering comfort with his presence. "You'll get through this, Lily. You were brave in speaking your truth today." As she stood there, still feeling the sharpness of her loss, something shifted within her. She wouldn't forget Jake. No matter where he went, no matter what challenges awaited him, a piece of her would remain tied to his journey. In the weeks that followed, time moved both slowly and quickly, each day a reminder of the uncertainty weighing on her heart. But she held on to hope tightly, knowing that love could transcend distance. And even though he was gone, she would carry their moments with her, every laugh, every whispered dream. They had shared something real, and love, no matter how distant, had a way of finding its way back home. As she stood behind the cafe counter each day, serving coffee and occasional smiles, she kept an eye on the door, waiting for the moment he would walk back through it. The world moved on around her, but her heart remained steadfast, ready for the day when she could embrace him again. "Wait outside for a minute," she said, her voice steady yet laced with an urgency she couldn't quite shake. The cafe was buzzing with the morning crowd, the murmur of conversations blending with the hissing of the espresso machine, and Lily felt herself teetering on the edge of something monumental. Jake, with his tousled hair and easy smile, looked taken aback. "Sure, no problem, I'll be right here," he replied, stepping outside. The bell above the door jingled softly as it closed behind him. As soon as the door shut, Lily's heart sank under the weight of what she had to do. She turned back toward the counter, wrapping her fingers around the cool metal edge. Thoughts spun wildly in her mind. They had been friends for so long, sharing laughter and secrets, but now she had to reveal a truth that might change everything. "Tom," her manager asked, leaning against the counter. His eyes were sharp, studying her reaction closely. "I have to tell him," she replied, swallowing hard. The words brought a tremor to her voice, but she steeled herself. She had known Jake for years, shared countless moments, but now she felt a chasm of unaddressed emotions widening between them. As she poured a cup of coffee for a customer, her gaze drifted out the front window. Jake was standing outside, looking up toward the blue sky, seemingly carefree, but she knew that was only the surface. Today was the day she would break that surface, plunge into the depths of honesty. But then something shifted in the cafe. Tom's expression suddenly turned serious. "Lily, wait," he said, his voice turning urgent. She looked at him, confusion washing over her. "What?" Tom gestured toward the door, and her heart raced. She glanced outside just in time to see him approach Jake. The casual demeanor they shared moments ago seemed to evaporate, replaced by something deeper. Called out, his tone sharp and commanding. Lily pressed her hands against the counter, breath hitching in her throat. What was happening? Tom walked nearer to Jake, his posture straight and serious. To her shock, he raised his hand in a sudden salute. That small gesture sent a jolt through her. Jake returned the salute, his expression shifting instantly from casual ease to focused professionalism. Lily whispered, her heart racing. The layers of their friendship felt like they were peeling away right before her eyes. Tom returned inside, his expression tight. "Lily, you need to know something," he said, his voice low. "Jake's not just a customer." The world tilted for Lily. She echoed, confusion mixing with disbelief. "Most guys don't," Tom replied, concern etched in his features. "They struggle to share that part of their lives." "Scary," she repeated, the gravity of those words weighing upon her. "How long has he been keeping this from me?" Tom looked at Jake outside, who seemed lost in thought. "Because it's hard. He probably wanted to protect you from worrying, but you need to talk to him now." Every emotion she felt swirled together, fear, anger, and desperation. She had to speak to him before it was too late. With a shaky breath, she pushed the door open, the bell chiming softly again. The outside air hit her like a slap, sharp and cool, awakening her senses. She called, taking 2 quick steps toward him. He turned, that familiar smile slowly returning, but the light in his eyes faltered when he saw her expression. She began, but the words tangled in her throat. The raw truth of the moment pressed down on her. Jake straightened, his brows furrowing. "No, it's not," she demanded, her heart pounding as adrenaline coursed through her. The shift in his demeanor was immediate. Flicker of surprise crossed his face, morphing into something deeper. "I didn't mean to keep it from you." The hurt bubbled up, cutting through her like ice, complicated. The words spilled out, filled with betrayal and confusion. "I didn't want to burden you," he said, his voice losing its usual warmth. She shot back, disbelief coursing through her. "This isn't easy for me at all. How could you not trust me with something so monumental?" he insisted. "I didn't mean for things to go this way. You don't understand how hard it is to talk about this." The deep fear behind his words hit her like a wave, raw and authentic. She had never seen this side of him, and it shook her. She mirrored back, voice breaking. "That's why you need to be honest with me." He stepped closer, searching her eyes. "You think I want to keep you out? I wish I could tell you everything, but I didn't want to put that on you. It's messy and it's heavy." She cried out, frustration and fear battling for control. You might be leaving, you might not come back. His shoulders sagged, and for a brief moment she saw a flicker of uncertainty reflected in his usually confident demeanor. But before he could finish, Tom emerged from the cafe, urgency etched on his face. "Jake, we really need to go," he said, cutting through the tension. Lily felt her stomach drop. She shouted, desperation surging through her. Jake turned back to her, his expression a painful mixture of regret and frustration. "I need to go, Lily," she pleaded, feeling the walls of pressure close in. "Please, this isn't fair." "I want to be with you, but I can't miss this," Jake said, voice tight. Said Tom, stepping forward. She begged, her voice breaking under the weight of all her feelings. Jake stepped closer, but it felt like every inch mattered. "I promise I'll come back." Tears stung her eyes as she fought to hold them back. "I won't forget you," he said softly, his gaze fierce but tinged with sorrow. "You've meant so much to me." As Tom placed a firm hand on Jake's shoulder, everything felt unsteady, like the ground was shifting beneath her. "We need to go now," Tom said, voice resolute. She cried out, but he was already turning away, walking toward the car parked at the curb. The weight of finality hung in the air as she felt her heart shatter. Jake paused, looking back over his shoulder, his expression full of regret. "Lily, I'll do everything I can to come back." As he got into the car, she stood frozen, her heart tearing apart with each passing second. The engine roared to life, and she felt a sense of helplessness wash over her. "Lily, don't," Tom warned gently as she stared into the car, her breath shaky. "You did what you could," but no comfort could remove the emptiness she felt deep inside. She watched as the car pulled away, taking him further and further from her. Each moment that passed felt like a strand of their connection unraveling. Days turned into weeks, and each morning she found herself returning to that cafe, yet the laughter felt hollow. The customers came and went, but Jake's absence lingered like a fog. As she worked, the memories played in her mind like a movie reel. His smile, the sparkle in his eyes, the way they shared the smallest moments that felt monumental. But now those memories felt like ghosts haunting her. Each time she closed her eyes, she could imagine his face, the way he held her gaze as if her very presence filled a void in his heart. Would she ever know if he made it back? Would he contact her? The uncertainty gnawed at her, twisting in her stomach like a vice. One afternoon, as she wiped down tables and served coffee, a package arrived for her. A small, unassuming box that felt heavy with potential. She glanced at Tom, who lifted an eyebrow, encouraging her to open it. With trembling hands, she unwrapped it, revealing a simple bracelet nestled inside a silver chain with a small charm shaped like a compass. Attached was a note, "To guide you until I return." Tears filled her eyes as she held the bracelet close to her heart. It was a reminder of his promise, a small piece of hope that he would return. She clasped it around her wrist, feeling its weight settle in as a symbol of their connection. Days turned into a blur, but each time Lily looked at that bracelet, the bond seemed to pulse with life. There was an unspoken understanding between them, held together by threads of affection and resilience. Even in silence, love thrived. She focused on her work, serving coffee and chatting with customers while holding on to the hope that he would return. Every newspaper she read with headlines about the military made her heart race, each moment filled with fear and cunning dread. But every time doubt slipped in, she clutched that bracelet, reminding herself of their moments together. As the seasons changed, so did her sense of time. Weeks transformed into months, yet the cafe felt as alive as ever with laughter and closeness. She poured herself into her work, each task filled with purpose and conviction. Then came a day when the doorbell chimed again and her heart leaped into her throat. She looked up, anxiously hoping to see a familiar face, but it was just a customer. Disappointment washed over her, yet she steadied herself. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, painting the cafe in warm golden hues, the door swung open. A gust of wind rushed in and her heart skipped a beat. She stopped in her tracks. Jake. He stood there, worn but unmistakable, the same familiar smile breaking through the exhaustion on his face. Her breath caught and time froze. "Lily," he said, stepping forward, eyes wide with a mix of longing and disbelief. For a moment she felt as if nothing else existed, just the two of them standing there, magnetic forces pulling them together. She rushed toward him, throwing her arms around him. He enveloped her in a tight embrace, and everything else fell away, the fear, the uncertainty, the distance. "I promised I'd find my way back," he whispered into her hair, his voice rich with warmth, and in that moment all the lost time melted away and hope transformed into reality once more. As they pulled back, she looked into his eyes, searching for signs of the person he had become. "I am," he said, a gentle smile breaking across his face. He glanced down at the bracelet still clasped around her wrist, a flash of recognition crossing his gaze. "Every day," she replied, tears brimming in her eyes. "Then it did its job," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I thought about you every single day." The cafe hummed around them, filled with life and laughter, but all that noise faded into an intricate background. Together they continued chatting, unraveling the threads of the time spent apart, weaving a new tapestry of hope and connection. As the sun began to set on that evening, they knew this wasn't just the end. It was a new beginning, one built on trust, honesty, and the unwavering promise of love. In that moment they were home, together, and nothing else mattered. "Wait outside for a minute," she said, biting her lip as she gestured toward the cafe door. The air felt charged, heavy with unspoken words and barely contained emotions. Jake tilted his head, confusion crossing his features as he stepped out, the door closing behind him with a soft jingle. Lily stood behind the counter, leaning against the stainless steel, her heart racing faster than the espresso machine competing with the chatter around her. The warmth of the cafe felt foreign, almost suffocating as dread coiled in her stomach. Today was the day. She could no longer keep the truth buried deep inside her. As she focused on grinding coffee beans, her thoughts raced. Jake had been in her life for as long as she could remember, a constant source of warmth and laughter. Their friendship had danced on the edge of something deeper, and she had finally come to recognize the love growing between them. But now, as the familiar smell of fresh brews enveloped her, she realized she had to tell him everything, especially the truth that had surfaced just days before. Tom, her manager, asked from behind the counter, his brow furrowing with concern. I can't let this drag on any longer," she replied, her voice firm yet trembling with uncertainty. He watched her closely, a mix of concern and understanding in his eyes. "Just be careful, you know he's not just another customer, right?" Lily glanced at the door again, anxiety twisting her stomach in knots. Tom was right. Jake wasn't just a regular guy, he held secrets she had only begun to uncover. She felt time slipping away as another glance outside confirmed that Jake was indeed lingering, looking up at the blue sky, seemingly unaware of the emotional storm brewing between them. Then, as if sensing her gaze, he turned to look back through the window and flashed a charming smile. But he didn't know what was coming, and neither did she. Tom's expression shifted suddenly, and he glanced back toward the door. "Wait, hold on a second," he said, stepping away from the counter. "What?" Lily pressed, confusion rising within her. Without answering, Tom walked straight toward the door where Jake was waiting outside. An uneasy feeling settled in her heart. Why was he going to talk to Jake? She pressed her hands against the counter, her breath quickening as she leaned closer to the glass. Tom approached Jake, his stance shifting from casual to commanding. Then, to her utter shock, he raised his hand in a sharp salute. Lily whispered, her heart plummeting. Jake's expression morphed from casual enjoyment to one of respect and seriousness. He returned the salute, and the sight left her dumbfounded. It felt like the ground had shifted beneath her. Her understanding of who Jake was shattered in an instant. Lily's stomach twisted. Had she been seeing only half the picture? Tom walked back into the cafe, a grave look on his face as he approached her. "Lily, we need to talk," he said, his voice low and urgent. She asked, a tremor of panic creeping into her voice. Tom looked her in the eye, and all at once it felt like the air had thickened. Jake isn't just a regular guy. The world tilted for her. The military, what? Her voice cracked under the weight of realization, pure disbelief flooding her thoughts. "It's hard for a lot of service members to open up about their lives, especially when they're close to someone," Tom explained. The revelation hit her like a physical blow. All those easy laughs, shared secrets, and the warmth of his presence felt tainted. She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Tom nodded, his expression grave. "That's why you need to speak to him." Panic surged through her as she turned to the door. She had to seize this moment. "I need to talk to him," she declared. With every ounce of determination, she pushed the cafe door open, the soft chime echoing in the tense silence that followed. The cool breeze outside hit her face, but her heart pounded like a drum in her chest. She called, her voice urgent. He turned, his smile fading as he saw the tension in her eyes. "No, it's not," she said, taking a step closer. "We need to talk." He took a step back, confusion rolling over his face. "There's something you've been hiding from me," she pressed, her heart racing with every syllable. His face fell, the easygoing Jake she knew being replaced by a storm of emotions. "Lily, I didn't want to burden you with this," he admitted, shame clouding his eyes. She echoed, feeling the heat rise in her chest. "You kept a massive part of yourself hidden. It was complicated," he stammered, raising his hands defensively. She cried out, her voice rising. "You kept shutting me out. I care about you." He shot back, his voice strained. "You don't know what this life is like," she yelled back as tears pricked her eyes. "You don't get to decide what I can and cannot handle." In that moment, Jake's features softened, but the tension lingered. She said, desperation seeping into her tone. For a moment, he looked like he was about to say something more, but before he could gather his thoughts, Tom emerged from the cafe again, urgency in his eyes. "Jake, we have to go," he urged, his voice firm. Lily felt the air shift around them and her heart sank. "No, please," she begged, her voice thick with emotion. Jake said sharply, staring at Tom, visibly strained. With each passing second, the hope drained from her. "Jake, please," she grasped for anything, some whisper of hope that he wouldn't just walk away. Jake looked torn, his gaze shifting back to her. "I care about you, Lily, more than you know." Every moment felt like a lifetime as he stepped further from her grasp. "Promise me," she implored, desperation spilling from her. "Promise me you'll come back." He looked at her, eyes filled with pain. "I promise I'll do my best," he said, his voice heavy with heartbreak. As he turned to walk away, she felt the universe closing around her, everything spinning out of control. She cried, but the moment felt slipping through her fingers like sand. The engine of the car started and dread squeezed her chest. She watched Jake climb into the passenger seat, the distance growing between them not just physically but emotionally. "Lily, you'll be okay," Tom said softly as he saw the turmoil on her face. But the world felt bleak and upside down. She stood there paralyzed, the car pulling away with everything she had held dear, a part of her heart leaving with it. Days turned into weeks, and every sunrise felt like a reminder of his absence. She threw herself into work, served coffee with a smile, but inside she felt hollow. Every time she saw a soldier in uniform, her heart raced, an involuntary tug of hope quickly crushed by reality. The days blended together, a slow march that often found her stuck in thought. Where was he? What was he doing? Was he safe? The uncertainty became a dead weight, dragging her deeper into despair. Then one day a package arrived at the cafe, small but clearly addressed to her. Her heart raced as she wondered who it could be from. She opened it carefully, revealing a bracelet with a delicate compass charm nestled inside. Attached was a note, "To guide you until I return." She held it tightly, tears springing to her eyes as a surge of emotions washed over her. He was thinking of her even from afar. Every day she had held on to the hope that he would keep that promise, and now here it was, a tangible token that tethered her heart to him. With determination igniting in her spirit, she clasped the bracelet around her wrist, feeling its weight settle like a promise etched into her skin. She wore it every single day, letting it remind her that love could withstand distance, time, and uncertainty. As the weeks went by, she found strength in small moments, continuing to serve coffee and share smiles with customers. But beneath that, a flicker of hope shone brighter, glowing with the promise of Jake's return. Finally, one crisp evening, while the cafe dimmed its lights in preparation for closing, the door swung open. A wave of cool air followed, and her heart raced as she instinctively looked up. Jake stood in the doorway, worn but unmistakably him. The familiar smile she had missed so much broke across his face, lighting up the darkened cafe. "Lily," he said, stepping forward, eyes wide with disbelief. Time stood still, everything else fell away. She rushed toward him, her heart bursting as she wrapped her arms around him tightly, feeling the warmth of his familiar embrace. She exclaimed, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "I promised I'd find my way back," he said softly, pulling back to look into her eyes, the sincerity in his gaze grounding her. With every word, every moment they shared, the world felt right again. They stood there, overwhelmed by relief, the distance of their weeks apart melting into memories of warmth and connection. She glanced down at the bracelet around her wrist, and he caught the glint of it. He asked, emotion welling in his voice. "Every day, it reminded me of you and it gave me hope," she replied, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Lily," he said, taking her hands in his, "you were my light out there. I thought about you every day." Suddenly, the laughter and chatter of the cafe faded into the background, replaced by the rhythm of their heartbeats united once more. They spoke for hours, unraveling the challenges they faced and their fears, but sharing their dreams also, a future that now felt tangible. The connection they rekindled felt electric, a resurgence of love and resilience. As the cafe stood still around them, they both knew this was not just a reunion. It was a promise of a new beginning, a journey they would embark on together, come what may. And with that shared determination, they stepped forward, embracing the uncertainty of life together, knowing their love was strong enough to guide them through. "Wait outside for a minute," she said, her voice steady but laced with an urgency that raised the hairs on the back of her neck. The cafe was buzzing with the sounds of morning, the hissing of the espresso machine, the chatter of early risers, and the clinking of cups. It felt both overwhelming and exhilarating. Jake pushed open the door, a puzzled look crossing his face for a moment before he smiled. "Sure, no problem." The door swung shut behind him, leaving Lily with her thoughts. She leaned against the counter, fingers gripping the cool metal. From the inside, she watched him stand outside, looking up at the clear blue sky, his hands tucked into his jacket pockets. He radiated warmth, as if the sun itself had chosen to shine just for him. Yet today, a tempest brewed inside her. Tom, her manager, asked as he joined her at the counter, concern etched across his face. His inquiry snapped her back into the moment, conjuring a feeling of doubt that clawed at her resolve. "I have to tell him the truth," she replied, determination hardening her voice. "All right, but just be careful." Tom's eyes searched hers as if weighing the weight of her words. With that, Lily's stomach tightened. What if Tom was right? All those late-night conversations, the laughter, the stolen glances, had they all been built on a foundation of half-truths? She looked back through the glass. Jake leaned against the cafe wall, half smiling, and she felt her heart twinge. He was everything she had come to care for, but how much of that was real? The thought sent a shiver through her. Suddenly, she noticed Tom's expression change. He had spotted something outside. "Just a second," he said, and without waiting for a response, he walked toward the door, an unmistakable urgency in his step. She blurted out, confusion flooding her mind. She pressed her face against the window, her pulse quickening as she watched Tom approach Jake. The casual stance they had always shared shifted into something more serious. "Hey there," she heard Jake say, but the sound faded as Tom's voice took over. In a shocking moment that made Lily's heart race, Tom raised his hand in a sharp salute. Everything about it felt surreal, a scene unfolding like something out of a war movie rather than the everyday life they shared. Jake's brows furrowed, and then he returned the salute. It sent shockwaves through her. She felt her breath hitch in her throat. This was so out of character for both of them. The man she knew had shifted, and suddenly the air was heavy with secrets. She whispered the question aimlessly floating into the bustling café, drowned out by the sounds around her. Tom walked back inside, his posture firm as he approached Lily. "You need to know something," he said, his voice low. The words landed like a punch, knocking the breath from her lungs. "What? He's in the military." The realization crashed in waves, her mind racing with disbelief. Tom nodded, concern shadowing his features. It's not easy for a lot of soldiers to share that side of their lives. They face things we can't even begin to understand. Her chest tightened at that. Complicated, it felt like an understatement. She asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. "Yes," Tom replied, sadness creeping into his voice. "That's why this conversation is so crucial." The weight of urgency hit her like a freight train. She had to seize this moment. "I need to talk to him now," she demanded, her voice sharper than she intended. Without waiting for a response, she pushed open the door, stepping out into the brisk morning air. The coolness jolted her senses, but the sight of Jake standing outside, a confused smile still on his lips, made her stomach flip. She called, her heart racing. He turned, worry etched on his face. She took a breath, gathering her courage. "We need to talk." Jake's expression changed from confusion to concern. He stepped closer, eyes searching her face. "Is it about the cafe?" She exclaimed, frustration bubbling up. "It's about you." His voice dipped lower, twinged with a hint of unease. Lily inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of every unspoken word crashing over her. "You didn't tell me you're in the military," she said, the words tumbling out. He paused, the moment stretching thick with tension. She interrupted, anger breaking free. "You can't keep hiding things from me. We share everything else." "I didn't want to burden you with it," he said, his voice layered with vulnerability she hadn't seen before. She cried out, her heart racing. "I can't be there for you if you shut me out. I care about you, Jake." His eyes shifted, a mix of shame and uncertainty clouding them. "It's complicated. You don't understand what it's like." She pressed, stepping closer, desperate for understanding. "What if I want to be able to worry about you? You're not just leaving for a weekend trip, you're going somewhere dangerous." "I know," he said, voice dropping, "but I wasn't prepared for all this." She shot back, her emotions spilling over. "You've kept this massive part of your life hidden while we danced around something real between us." "I didn't want to hurt you," he admitted, his tone softening. "And yet here we are," she said, her voice shaking. "I can't stand not knowing who you really are. Care about you, and I want to be part of this, whatever it is." As they stood there, the silence between them grew heavy, laden with everything left unsaid. He looked away, anguish etched across his features. "Lily, her heart ached at the sight of his vulnerability. Just then Tom stepped back outside, a grave look on his face. His words cut through the tension like a knife. Lily felt a knot form in her throat. "No, you can't just leave," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "Lily, please," Jake began, his eyes pleading for understanding. She shot back. "You owe me the truth." Tom placed a hand on Jake's shoulder, trying to maintain control of the situation. "We really need to go, Jake," he said quietly, the urgency clear in his tone. "Wait, can't you give me a few minutes?" she begged, feeling the walls close in as she fought against the inevitable. Jake hesitated, glancing between her and Tom. "I hate to rush this, but I can't miss my orders," he said, his voice thick with regret, every second stretched painfully. "Jake, please don't leave like this," she implored, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Promise me you'll be okay." "I promise," he replied, his expression pained. As he climbed into the passenger seat of the waiting car, the world around her dissolved into chaos. She felt an emptiness consume her as the engine roared to life. She cried out, reaching toward him as if he could hear her from a distance. The car pulled away, taking everything she had come to love into the unknown. Standing there, Lily felt like the very ground she stood on was collapsing beneath her. Tom placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, but it felt insignificant against the void that had suddenly filled her life. "You did what you could," he said softly, a note of compassion in his voice. "But it wasn't enough," she whispered, the words heavy with sorrow. "What if something happens to him?" "Every moment we have matters," Tom replied, and though his words were meant to comfort, they only deepened her pain. Days turned into weeks, and time became a blur of routine and worry. Morning coffee became a reminder of his absence, and evenings felt long and cold without his laughter to light them up. Each day was like a ticking clock, counting down to the unknown. Every military news story sent a shock of fear through her, making her wonder if he was okay, if he was safe. With each dawn, she woke with questions ringing in her ears. Was he still out there? Was he thinking of her? She clung to the hope of his return, even as uncertainty loomed large. Then one afternoon, a simple package arrived with her name scrawled across it in familiar handwriting. Heart racing, she ripped it open to find a silver bracelet with a small compass charm nestled inside. Accompanying it was a note that read, "To guide you until I return." Her breath hitched as the words washed over her. She held the bracelet tightly, feeling the warmth of his sentiment seep into her. He had thought of her even from afar. Lily clasped it around her wrist, letting the weight of it settle in, a promise that they would indeed find their way back. Days unfolded into an endless stream, but whenever her gaze fell on that bracelet, it lit a flicker of hope in her heart. Love, she realized, isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's just about the quiet strength to keep going, to endure the waiting. The seasons shifted, she clung to that promise. The cafe remained a bustling hub, yet the vibrant conversations faded into a hum, a backdrop to her thoughts. She poured herself into her work but found herself gazing out the window, half expecting to see him walk through the door. Then one day, the cafe door swung open and a gust of wind followed, sending a chill through her. Her heart raced as she glanced up. Time seemed to stand still as her eyes locked onto a figure stepping through the entrance. Jake. He looked different, worn and weary, yet unmistakably him. The familiar warmth in his smile cut through the noise of the cafe, and in that moment she felt the breath freeze in her lungs. "Lily," he said, stepping forward, his voice thick with emotion. Without thinking, she rushed toward him, throwing her arms around his neck in a fierce embrace, every moment of worry and longing crashing into a wave of relief. "You're back," he cupped her face, his intense gaze holding hers. "I promised I would find my way back," he said, the sincerity in his words igniting a fire within her. "You're here," she breathed, tears rolling down her cheeks as joy and relief flooded her heart. "I thought about you every single day," he replied, emotion cracking his voice. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's embrace, it felt as if the world outside had faded. The cafe buzzed with life around them, but all they could hear was the beating of their hearts, synchronized in a rhythm that spoke of love and resilience. Lily stepped back, her hands still holding onto his arms. "I wore the bracelet," she said, glancing at her wrist, the compass charm gleaming under the cafe lights. "It reminded me of you." A soft smile broke across his face, relief washing over him. "I'm glad you did, kept me anchored out there." As they settled into the conversation, mixing laughter with heartfelt confessions, they realized this was the beginning of a new chapter, one built on truth, trust, and the promise of adventure. Tom watched them from afar, a knowing smile playing on his lips. The tensions of the past had transformed into something beautiful, and the bonds they had forged would carry them through whatever lay ahead. In that moment, amidst the laughter and light, they understood that love is about direction, finding your way back to each other, no matter the distance. And as the day turned into night, they both knew they could face whatever came next together. "Wait outside for a minute," Lily said, her heart pounding in her chest. The bustling cafe was filled with the sounds of laughter, the comforting aroma of coffee wafting through the air, but all she could focus on was Jake's expression. He looked at her, puzzled yet curious, the kind smile on his face fading as he sensed something was about to change. Jake replied casually, stepping through the door. It closed with a soft jingle, leaving Lily momentarily alone with her whirlwind of thoughts. She leaned back against the counter, staring at the spot where he had just stood. This wasn't just another chat over coffee. She felt a knot tightening in her stomach, realizing that today was the day she had to confront what had been simmering between them. For weeks they'd been skirting around the truth, dancing around their feelings like it was a game, but now there was no going back. "Tom," her manager said, leaning in closer, his brow furrowed with concern. Lily's voice was firmer than she felt. Tom nodded but didn't look convinced. "Just tread carefully." She didn't need him to remind her of that. They had shared so many smiles and laughs, but lately an invisible weight had hung between them. And now, as she caught sight of Jake through the window, his figure framed by the warm glow of the afternoon sun, an overwhelming sense of dread washed over her. "Just tell him," she whispered to herself, taking a deep breath, but the words felt stuck as if they were trapped in her throat. From outside, she noticed him glance toward the sky, seemingly oblivious to the storm brewing inside her. In that moment, she decided she couldn't let it linger any longer. Taking a steadying breath, she glanced back at Tom, who looked wary but understanding. "I'm going to talk to him," she said, moving towards the door. "Just give it time," he suggested, but she didn't want to wait. The fear of losing him if she never spoke up was too great. As she pushed the door open and stepped outside, a gust of cool air brushed against her skin. The world seemed different out here, as if the air itself had shifted. Jake was leaning casually against the cafe wall, eyes bright with warmth when he noticed her approach. "Hey," he asked, that familiar, charming smile returning to his face. "Not really," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "We need to talk." Confusion flickered in his eyes and he straightened up, the casual demeanor giving way to something more serious. "Jake," she started, heart racing, "I can't keep pretending." His brows knit together, and just for a moment she thought she saw fear flash across his face. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," she insisted, trying to keep her voice steady. For a brief moment the world fell silent. His expression shifted slowly from confusion to something more guarded. She interjected, feelings swirling like a tornado around them. "How could you keep that from me? I thought it would be easier this way," he said, pain evident in his tone. She snapped, feeling anger and hurt intertwined. "You think lying to me is protecting me? You're about to leave, Jake." He glanced away, visibly struggling with his emotions. "You don't understand the risks, the uncertainties of my life," she said, her voice breaking. "What kind of relationship is that?" The tension between them crackled like static electricity. Just then, to her shock, Tom stepped outside, his face tight with urgency. Lily's heart sank. The gravity of the moment pressed down on her chest like a heavy weight. "What do you mean?" "I have orders," Jake said, his expression serious, almost pained. "This is beyond what I want," she pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. Jake glanced between her and Tom, and she could see the conflict playing out in his mind. He started, but Tom stepped closer, his voice firm. "We really have to go." In that moment, time felt suspended, the distance between them growing unbearable. "I can't lose you, Jake," she cried, desperation spilling into her voice. "I promise I'll come back," he said, the sincerity in his eyes flickering with vulnerability. But it felt like a promise tinged with uncertainty, and as he turned to the waiting vehicle, the reality crushed her. "Jake, please," she shouted, but it was too late. The moment slipped away like sand through her fingers. The car door slammed and the engine roared to life. The world blurred as he turned away, and she felt like she was losing a part of herself. "Lily, it's going to be okay," Tom said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. But the void left by Jake's departure was overwhelming. Days turned into weeks, and the cafe continued to bustle without him. Each morning she poured coffee, forcing smiles for customers while hiding the heartbreak that was slowly consuming her. She felt like a ghost in her own life. Memories of their laughter echoed in her mind, the warmth of his presence replaced by an aching emptiness. Every news broadcast about soldiers filled her with dread, a nagging sense of worry hanging over her like a dark cloud. Would Jake return? What was he facing? Her heart fluttered at the thought of him, and she found solace only in the small silver bracelet he had sent, a simple compass that anchored her thoughts. Then one chilly afternoon, she heard the familiar jingle of the cafe door. Her heart raced as she looked up, almost afraid of what she would see. But when the door swung open, a wave of warmth hit her like sunlight breaking through clouds. It was him. Jake stood in the doorway, weary but unmistakably alive. Relief washed over her like a tidal wave as she rushed forward, her arms wrapping around him in a fierce embrace. She exclaimed, emotions pouring out. "I'm back," he replied, his voice muffled against her shoulder. "God, I was so worried," she said, pulling back to look at his face, searching for any sign of what he endured. "I thought of you every day," he confessed, his eyes glimmering with sincerity. As the world around them faded into the background, they mended the fractures that had threatened to tear them apart. She felt every part of her come alive again, but as they settled into the rekindled bond, the small silver compass bracelet on her wrist caught his eye. "You wore it," he said, a smile breaking across his face. "I wore it every day," she said, her heart swelling. "It reminded me of you." And just as the corners of his mouth turned up in joyful relief, a sudden commotion disrupted the air. The door swung open again, but this time the cheerful buzz of the cafe shifted into hushed whispers and gasps. A group of soldiers marched in, clad in their uniforms, eyes scanning the room. Her heart dropped, recognizing the serious expressions they wore. Then through the crowd, a man stepped forward, his demeanor commanding attention. It was an officer, and he was looking directly at Jake, his expression solemn. "Private Jake Reynolds," the officer called out, his voice booming across the cafe. The energy in the room shifted, tension gripping everyone present. Lily watched, her heart racing as the situation morphed. She thought, dread clawing at her insides. The officer moved closer. Every ounce of warmth vanished from Jake's face. "What?" "No, I just got back," he stammered, confusion and disbelief taking hold. "You're under orders," the officer insisted, the tone icy and unwavering. "We need you back on the ground." Lily's heart sank as the weight of those words crashed down on them. She could feel the panic rising within her, a cocktail of emotions spilling over. "Wait, I can't go," Jake argued, desperation creeping into his voice. "Pack your gear," the officer said firmly, unyielding. The cafe was a swirl of chaos as whispers filled the space, but to Lily, everything felt like it was closing in. She watched Jake's face pale, and in that moment, all the joy they had just shared shattered into a million pieces. She said, her voice trembling, fighting against the reality unfolding before them. As uncertainty hung in the air, the officer stood resolute, commanding the situation with cold authority. Jake turned to her, his expression a mix of anguish and resolve. "I'm sorry," he said softly, his voice cracking. But before she could process what was happening, he was already turning away, grabbing his bag and leaving everything behind. The warmth that had just enveloped them, the promise of their future. With every step he took away from her, she felt the fragile threads of hope unravel. And as the door swung shut, sealing her off from all that had just been restored, she knew nothing would ever be the same again. Standing there, the weight of impending loss filled her chest. What would happen next? Would this swiftly unraveling moment define who they were, or could they find their way back to each other once more? The questions hung in the air, a storm brewing on the horizon, and with every heartbeat, she realized their journey was far from over. And as the shadows crept in, she stood there, heart racing, knowing that the hardest part might just be beginning.